Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. When I was pushed into the operating room, my family and boyfriend were with my foster sister, watching her competition. That day my surgery went wrong. The tumor in my brain was removed, but my nerves were damaged. I lost the ability to feel like a normal person. I had a tumor in my head, and I wanted to tell my parents and boyfriend about it. But my parents were busy buying plane tickets to accompany my foster sister to participate in a dance competition abroad, and my boyfriend was working overtime all the time. I hesitated for a long time while typing on the chat interface, then finally chose to delete the message I had edited. I knew that no one would care about what happened to me, even if I told them. After all, in everyone's eyes, my existence couldn't compare to 1,000th of Monica's. Monica was the daughter of my father's comrade. When she was 6 years old, her parents died in a car accident. Monica was taken in by her relatives and ended up dirty and homeless on the streets until my dad, who came to pay his respects to his old friend, found her. Since then, she became the second daughter in our family. I was 10 years old that year and Monica was 6. My parents told me, "Joanna, you're a big girl now. You need to learn to take care of your sister." I didn't know how to take care of her. All I knew was that Monica was always so fragile. She didn't have to do anything. Just stand there looking at me with teary eyes, and everything I had would become hers. When I was 10, I lost my own bedroom and moved into the guest room. When I was 12, my piano lessons were canceled, and the piano in our house was sold, turning the empty room into Monica's dance studio. After I turned 15, I never wore new clothes again. I always wore 2 sets of school uniforms in rotation. My parents didn't care. They dressed Monica up beautifully and boasted about their pretty daughter to everyone they met. From that time on, I stopped going home much. The year I was about to graduate from college, Monica went to study abroad. My parents briefly remembered me. They called me often, cared about my life, and sometimes sent me job recruitment information in the city where I lived. By sending the orphan of their comrade to college, my father achieved the most important thing in his life. He was in high spirits and said he would come to my city to visit me, as well as check if my boyfriend of 3 years was reliable. I had no expectations from them anymore, but I still made arrangements for their reception at a hotel and restaurant. I just didn't expect that Monica, whom I hadn't seen for a long time, would be with them. That day, her smile was exceptionally pure, just like when she first came to our house. She smiled at my boyfriend Mike the whole evening. Later, I saw Monica's profile picture on Mike's message chat pinned on top. Before being pushed into the operating room, I couldn't help but call my parents. The call was only connected for 3 seconds, and I heard my parents' anxious voices from the other end. "Joanna, we're boarding now. Your sister's competition is important. Let's talk when we get back. If there's anything." I didn't even have a chance to say a word before the call was hung up. I felt stunned staring at my phone screen. Just then Mike's new post popped up. He said he was going to fulfill his dreams in a distant land, and the ticket with the name of the country where Monica was going to compete was printed on it. I stared at the screen fixated until my aunt couldn't bear it anymore and forcibly took my phone away. "I've signed the consent form for you. Don't worry. I'll take care of everything for you. Your brother has been foolish these years. You've been through a lot," she said lovingly, patting my head, then sighed deeply. "Joanna, I'll be waiting for you to come back." I was pushed into the operating room, and the anesthesia gradually took effect on my body. Before losing consciousness, I couldn't help but wonder if I died during the surgery. Would my parents shed tears for me? And Mike? I thought when I got out I had to tell him myself. I had known he had changed his heart. This time I decided not to have him anymore. The story between Mike and me was not very grand, but in the early days of our college campus, it was a tale approved by both teachers and classmates. The beginning of the story was cliché. The student council president, with a privileged family background and good looks, helped a staff member who fainted from low blood sugar after working all day at a college welcome event. The second time they met, he specially left 2 candies in his pocket for her. From then on, it became Mike's habit to keep candies for me in his pocket. In his eyes, I was someone who would fall with just a gust of wind. He always looked at me worryingly and said, "Joanna, I've never been so scared of losing someone before." He said I meant something to him like no one else did. There was always a special place for me next to him, just like how there would always be candy in the pocket of his coat for me. However, the last time I checked Mike's coat pocket after staying up all night for 2 meetings, I only found a strange lipstick. Chanel Silver Tube 116, Monica's favorite shade. I quietly put the lipstick back in his pocket, and since then I learned to carry my own candy. My life changed completely at the age of 10. Since I was 10, I have been trying to get used to not relying on anyone to live. I lowered my expectations of everyone, believing that as long as I didn't expect anything, I wouldn't be disappointed, and I wouldn't fall into despair when disappointment accumulated enough. But I was only human and couldn't be as carefree as I imagined. Mike spent a year pursuing me and then took care of me for another 3 years. It totaled up to exactly 4 years, and he gradually moved me little by little and made me feel that I too had someone to rely on. Yet the story was always so cliché. Just when I thought I had met someone who could truly treat me well, he changed his heart. He had fallen. At first, it was just out of pity for her difficult childhood. Then it was her lively personality that captured his attention in every way possible. As he listened to Monica describe her passion for dancing and witnessed her excellence on stage, Mike realized his true feelings for her. Mike said he had never met someone so special, so sincere and passionate, like a blazing fire. Because of her, he discovered that love is meant to burn brightly. He confessed to me after a few drinks that his feelings for me were more of familial attachment and habit. After that, he started preparing fervently to pursue Monica and separate from me. Of course, I was also preparing for the same thing, planning to gracefully exit their world as much as possible. This was something I had often done in the first 20 years of my life, getting used to being unnoticed and silently exiting. But all these thoughts changed the moment I opened my eyes after surgery. I realized that it shouldn't be me who exits. The first to notice my change was my aunt, who sat by my bedside peeling apples and trying to comfort me with funny stories. She realized that I seemed unbothered and not in need of comfort despite my quiet demeanor. Although I rarely expressed my needs, she could always tell from my eyes that I still deeply longed for my parents' care and the complete affection that should have been mine. However, that longing had now disappeared. After I was discharged from the hospital with my aunt's company, the doctors checked my condition. When they asked if I felt anything unusual, I calmly told them that I had never felt better. All those emotions that used to cloud my mind, hindering clear thoughts, had vanished. I could now see many things calmly and rationally. For example, my parents truly didn't care about me, so their inheritance might not include me but could burden me with their care responsibilities. The company that Mike and I had built together, where I handled all affairs, one person was enough. I no longer sought emotional validation from them, holding my ground for what's rightfully mine. Upon returning home, my aunt and I encountered my parents, Monica, and Mike just coming back from a trip abroad. Despite their joyful reunion, nobody bothered to ask why I hadn't called that day. As the family entered, they saw me standing pale-faced in the living room. The 4 of them showed a hint of embarrassment. Yes, for people, Mike was among them. Monica quickly approached, linking her arm with mine, asking if I minded them celebrating her award with Mike at our house. Before, I might have overlooked it just to be the easy child in their eyes, but now, under their gaze, I gently pushed Monica's hand off mine. Monica almost instantly teared up, feeling wronged. My dad immediately found reasons to scold me, while Mike wanted to say something but refrained from speaking lies when our eyes met. My mom remained silent, allowing them to scold me without intervening. Only when my aunt, who was upstairs packing my belongings, came down and took my hand to leave did my dad and Mike stop. While leaving, my mom asked where we were going. When I revealed that from now on only my aunt was my family, my dad nearly lost his temper. As my aunt swiftly took me away, leaving my mom persistently questioning from a distance, it took a while for her to understand the situation. My mom's soft approach to make me feel guilty couldn't affect me anymore. I finally opened up about my surgery and who really signed the consent form. When I said this, my mom's face turned completely pale. "Why didn't she tell the family about such a big matter?" she muttered. My aunt smiled and reminded her that half a month ago, she called you guys multiple times. My mom seemed to remember something, unbelievably pulled out her phone, and frantically searched on the screen for something. "It's useless even if you find records. You did answer her calls. But who had the patience to listen to her? You were all busy accompanying your adopted daughter on the plane, my aunt said before stepping on the gas pedal and driving away with me. That night, my mom tried to contact me only to find that all her accounts had been blocked by me. Along with me, my dad, Joanna, and Mike were all blocked. Unable to reach me and just being scolded, my parents couldn't bring themselves to ask my aunt and uncle. They could only complain about me in the family circle, saying that I was petty and unfilial. They said I was jealous of my sister's success and awards, and I didn't tell the family when I got sick, embarrassing myself even in front of my aunt. At first, my aunt couldn't help but laugh when she saw them saying those things. She told me not to look at those group messages, then turned to share my medical records and photos of her caring for me in the hospital. She asked how their conscience could be so bad. Their own daughter was seriously ill and hospitalized, and several times the surgery was delayed because of them. So far, they hadn't shown any concern and could even dismiss brain tumors as a minor issue and smear their own recovering daughter. My parents' lies were exposed, and they got angry in the family group, sending several voice messages to argue with my aunt. However, my aunt ignored them and just left the group. At night, she hugged me to sleep, gently patting my shoulder with warm hands. She said, "My brother and his family were wrong. Auntie knows you did nothing wrong. If you feel sad, just cry it out. Don't keep your grievances suppressed." Upon hearing this, I just looked at my aunt calmly. I told her I wasn't sad at all. Not a single ripple of emotion in my heart throughout. By the time I saw my parents again, I no longer cared whether they cared about me or not. I was thinking about how to cut ties with them and not be dragged down by them in the future. Under the moonlight, I saw the surprise in my aunt's eyes. Those usually compassionate eyes widened, then filled with pain. I knew I had a problem. I understood others' emotions, yet I couldn't feel any emotions myself. Perhaps this was a side effect of the surgery, but I didn't mind this situation at all. In fact, I thought it was better this way. I still had my ability to judge right from wrong. I just became more objective and rational. Just like now, I clearly knew my aunt was genuinely good to me. Even if I couldn't muster up a sense of gratitude inside, I knew I should strive to be filial to my aunt in the days ahead. As for my parents, they might have noticed my change but still hoped I would come back and continue to be controlled by them. However, they didn't know that it was no longer possible. Another half a month passed. My parents flaunted in their social circle every day about how well they treated Monica and had it relayed to me through others. They wanted me to regret, to understand that if I were smart enough to know how to submit to them and please them like Monica did, they could treat me well too. Even though I had been following their expectations for over 20 years, finally seeing me indifferent, they panicked. One day at the company entrance, I met my parents and Monica's family with Mike, who had disappeared for half a month. When Mike saw me, he subconsciously wanted to greet me, but in the end he couldn't say anything and just turned his head awkwardly. Next to him, Monica's expression turned sour with red eyes as if she had just cried, but they lit up instantly when she saw me. Seeing this unwanted scene, I had no interest in their performance. Just as I was about to ignore them and walk in, my mom grabbed my wrist. She said, "Joanna, because of guilt and self-blame towards you, Monica has severe depression. The doctor said she needs the companion of a lover. We've already asked Mike's opinion. You will accommodate your sister, right?" Seeing me silent, she continued, "Monica now has some fame in the domestic dance scene. Over the years, so much money was spent to promote her career. As her sister, you can't just watch her career fall apart, can you?" Her sharp voice gave me a headache, and I silently pulled my hand back, looking at the 4 people in front of me, each with their own intentions. After removing the filter of family from them, I could see through their hidden motives. Even if Mike wanted to be with Monica, there were many decent ways for them to negotiate. They didn't have to make a scene at the company entrance to force me to comply. In the end, they were just testing my limits, wanting to know if I would still obey them as before, willing to sacrifice my interests limitlessly to please them. Okay, after pondering for a moment, I gave my answer. But before they could reveal relieved smiles, I turned to Mike on the side and said, 6 years of college and entrepreneurship. I want 15% of the company's original shares as compensation." Surprised that I demanded compensation, Mike's expression turned grim. He was about to say something, but I pushed further. "If the compensation is enough, I won't say another word about you and Monica. Even if you two get married in the future, you don't have to invite me. I won't go back home. As long as you don't bother me, I'll disappear from your lives completely. You don't want your dance goddess to be called a mistress, right? As soon as I finished speaking, Monica reacted almost instantaneously. She didn't give Mike time to think. She just held his arm and started crying. Mike always prided himself on being honest and not caring about money. Now, in the throes of love, he surprisingly agreed to the arrangement. The company was founded by both Mike and me. I held 26% of the shares, and he held 35%. Over the years, I bought back 10% of his shares. If Mike were to transfer his remaining shares to me, I would become the largest shareholder in the company, consequently marginalizing Mike. To prevent Mike from changing his mind when he regained his senses, I immediately took out my phone, asked the secretary to prepare the documents, and called the notary. The moment I acquired the shares, I sincerely wished Monica and Mike 100 years of happiness. I even escorted them to the company's front door. Joanna looked at me with a triumphant smile and warned Monica, "Monica, you've got the money now. You better not cling to Mike anymore." I smiled and motioned for the security guard to escort them out. My mom emerged from behind them, staring at me intently, and asked, "What do you mean you're never coming home again?" When she realized I didn't respond, she began accusing me with a hand over her heart. "Are you trying to kill me?" But I wouldn't succumb to her famed illness this time. I didn't even look at her. I just turned to leave. Finally, the smug look in my mom's eyes vanished. "What's wrong?" She tugged at my sleeve, her face filled with panic, even her voice trembling. She sensed that her faked illness and her manipulative tactics from the past were no longer effective, because I no longer cared about her, and wouldn't pretend to feel guilty for her fake illness anymore. I spoke softly, looking at her and Joanna's family behind her, and said slowly, "In the future, you and your family should live well." "What do you mean by that?" My dad, who hadn't spoken until now, was agitated. He rushed over to me, trying to hit me, but the security guards I had called earlier stood firmly in front of me. This time my dad was dumbfounded, clutching his heart as if he would faint from anger, just like my mom did earlier. At this point, my kid finally broke free from Monica's grip and walked up to me. He looked at me disapprovingly, saying, "Joanna, you can hate me, but your aunt and uncle are still your biological parents. What you're doing is too much." Yes, I didn't have time to argue with him, so I lowered my head, picked up my phone, and started handling the documents. Mike was taken aback by my indifferent attitude. Just as he was about to say something else, I raised my head and looked at him earnestly. "Mike, there's nothing left to discuss between us. You can keep the money, but I don't want any further contact." After touching upon my calm and icy expression, a hint of panic finally appeared on his face. "And considering your previous unexplained absence for half a month, we can no longer trust you. The company has decided to remove you from the position of CEO. I hope you can maintain your composure, don't persist, and preferably disappear far away." After saying that, I showed him my phone, even blacklisting his contact information right in front of him. Ignoring Mike's displeased expression, I turned and left confidently. As expected, I took over Mike's former position, coordinated with the other shareholders, and in the end, Mike had no choice but to sell his remaining shares. It's true that men can really affect their careers. After driving Mike away, the company's development started thriving. On the contrary, while I was raking in the riches, Mike was still obsessed with his romantic role, focusing on dating his ex-fiancée's sister. At this point, they still considered themselves winners. Monica was all high profile, constantly posting pictures with Mike and my parents on various social platforms, showing off their family love and affection. Of course, all these expenses were footed by Mike. Ever since my parents retired, their life had become a struggle, and all their savings over the years had been spent paving the way for Monica's dance career. Previously, they maintained a facade of prosperity because of me, and now the whole family was living off Mike. Their relatives, who visited regularly, didn't know and kept praising them for finding a wealthy son-in-law. Just as they were all willing to spread the word and boast about their picture-perfect family, I bought a new house for my aunt. I moved her out of the old neighborhood and into a detached house in the city center. My aunt had never been in a marriage or had children. She treated me like her own daughter. At first, she was reluctant to accept the fact that her name was on the property deed until I told her the house was hers and wouldn't be manipulated by greedy people. As I reminisced about the way we used to be, I imitated an affectionate gesture, leaning on her shoulder. I said, "I'll live with Aunt from now on. Don't you reject me, okay?" Tears welled up in my aunt's eyes. She patted my back gently and comforted me in a soft voice. "It's okay. It's okay. As long as Aunt's here, we'll always have a home." Upon hearing that I bought a house for my aunt, my parents suddenly turned red with urgency and hurried to the outside of the neighborhood where my aunt and I lived. Security is tight here. They couldn't stay in front of the gate for more than 3 minutes without providing their information. My dad called my aunt's phone and went off on her with a string of insults. In his mind, my aunt became a troublemaker who poisoned their father-daughter relationship. Aunt listened calmly and then asked him, "Do you really need me to sow discord after what you've done to Joanna?" My dad hesitated, but before he could respond, she continued, "You say Joanna is your daughter, but why doesn't your house have her bedroom or wardrobe? There are no dishes and utensils for her, not even a photo of her in the family portrait. If she's your daughter, where do you place her?" I watched Aunt getting emotional over the phone, so I walked over and hugged her from behind. I remember back in the dead of winter when I had no winter clothes and had to layer my spring and autumn school uniform. I ended up shivering in the snow, but when I got home, no one was there. My parents took Monica out to watch a movie. There was no food left for me in the kitchen, and I had no money in my pockets. Before collapsing, I barely made it to the entrance of Aunt's neighborhood. Aunt's house was 5 long streets away from mine, and that seemed like the longest distance I had ever walked in my life. If I had fallen anywhere during that snowstorm, I would never have made it to safety. Luckily, I made it. I saw Aunt coming down with an umbrella to throw out the trash. I saw the shock and concern on her face as she rushed over and hugged me as I had lost feeling from the cold. From then on, I had a home again. My room was at Aunt's house, my dishes and utensils were at Aunt's house, and she even bought back the piano that had been sold, placing it quietly in the living room. I had long forgotten how to play the piano, but that day I silently pledged in my heart that as long as I was there, I would be Aunt's biggest support in the future. So now, when my dad was being questioned by Aunt on the phone and started to spew foul language in response, I calmly took the phone and said to him, "Don't even think about a new house. Say one more word and you won't even be able to stay in your current one." He forgot that not only the house but also their living expenses had all been coming from my card. Their mega retirement funds and savings had been depleted over the years supporting Monica's competitions and dance lessons from top instructors. Yet they still looked down on me everywhere. Their voice was silenced on the other end for 2 seconds. Then my dad exploded with a thunder, "Heiress roar. Joanna, you've gone too far. How dare you?" The louder he shouted, the more guilty he felt. I had already died once on the operating table, so there was nothing I wouldn't dare now. I calmly expressed my feelings, but my dad took these words as me blaming them for their actions. He tried to take a softer approach, attempting to scold and then sweet-talk me as usual. He said, "In the end, you are still blaming us for caring too much about your sister. Why don't you think about how pitiful your sister is? Seems like you really think now that you live too comfortably." After he finished speaking, I hung up the phone and started contacting a real estate agent. While I was preparing to sell the house, my dad and his wife were relentless, trying to track me down and cause trouble wherever I appeared. I avoided them for 3 days, had someone record enough evidence, and then reported them to the police soon after. They were detained for 15 days on charges of provocation and causing trouble. My parents, who thought they had lived a dignified life, never imagined their daughter would send them to the police station in their old age. In front of the police, they cursed and scolded me, accusing me of being unfilial. I found it noisy, so I put in earplugs, turned to the police who came to mediate, and firmly refused to reconcile. As they were taken away, my once strict and authoritative father, as I remembered him, looked at me with a hint of fear in his eyes. Realizing that I might really stop caring about them, he softened his tone towards me, calling my name Joanna over and over. It was an intimacy that I hadn't received since I was 10 years old. But I had no emotions left, so I didn't soften towards him. Unfortunately, Monica had run off. When my parents were taken away, she immediately went on a trip with Mike. To protect the reputation of the dance star they had created with their own hands, my parents insisted that this was all their plan and there was absolutely no instigation from Monica. I imagined Monica's detestable appearance when not causing harm, figuring there would be another chance sooner or later. So during this time, I sold the original house at a low price to a big brother with a tattooed arm who could handle both black and white issues. Before my parents were released, Monica returned from the trip only to find herself locked out of the house. She couldn't believe the house was gone and knocked on the door for a long time, demanding an explanation. When the door finally opened, she saw the tall figure of the big brother and was too scared to even move. In the end, Mike drove her to his own home. Within 2 days, my parents were released. Upon hearing that I had sold the house, they started cursing at the sky and earth, but no one dared to bother me again. Their survival became their primary concern. So my parents quickly packed their bags and moved into Mike's house overnight. First, Mike welcomed them, but after years of showing off and asserting themselves to me, they couldn't resist and soon began displaying their unpleasant traits to Mike. Mike, who had never been pushed around since childhood, quickly had their first confrontation with them. Not long after my parents moved out of Mike's house, he rented a separate apartment for them, separated by half the city from Mike's house. For this, my parents constantly blamed Monica. They said that when Mike was with me, he never disrespected them like that. Why didn't Monica say something to Mike? Monica relied on Mike to spend money on her dancing. How could she stand firm in front of Mike? Over time, in order to maintain her relationship with Mike, Monica grew distant from her parents as well. One day, when Monica went to visit her parents, she overheard them complaining about Mike. It made her nostalgic for the days when she took care of their daily lives. But Monica had had enough of their manipulative ways. She smashed everything she could in the house and then confronted her parents, asking why they didn't come to her if they thought she was so good. This was the first time she had ever snapped in front of her parents. After firmly securing Mike, Monica realized that her family was just a colorful sideshow in her life, and she no longer needed to seek anyone's approval. The confrontation they had was earth-shattering. My mom was the main force, wailing and pulling Monica's hair at the rental house entrance, alternately calling her ungrateful and accusing her of not appreciating her years of care and investment. My dad, feeling embarrassed, just sat silently inside, smoking. Monica stood her ground, shouting back at my mom, calling her a vampire and ungrateful. Eventually, the commotion drew the attention of the whole floor before coming to a hasty end. This incident made headlines, causing the relatives who used to flatter them to scatter, cutting off ties with them. One relative recounted my parents' situation to me, expressing disbelief at how they had bragged about raising children well, and now ending up with Monica being described as ungrateful. As he spoke, he glanced at me, trying to please me, saying, "Joanna, let me say your aunt really has a good eye for choosing you as her treasure. Now just enjoy it in comfort." But my aunt was not impressed and unceremoniously kicked him out. As the door closed, she remained angry, pointing out how they had laughed at me as a wild child when I was young. But now that her son was graduating and job hunting, they praised me. I didn't feel anything towards this. I had encountered too many people like that in the first half of my life. But as I watched my aunt's worried expression under the warm yellow light, a fleeting warmth filled my heart. Only then did I realize that a few strands of white hair had appeared among her one-star clocks. I reached out and held her hand, asking her not to be angry and inviting her to a feast. "Aunt," I said, "what he said was wrong. It's not that you made the right choice by picking me, but I'm lucky to have met you." Under the warm glow of the light, my aunt's eyes turned red. She turned away to wipe her eyes before turning back to me with a smile, saying, "Don't be silly, I'm your aunt. It's only natural for me to love you." I worked harder than ever, with my rational and objective perspective driving the company's profits to soar. My own value increased proportionally. When I saw Mike again, it was at a business gala hosted by a partner. Mike was dressed in a meticulously tailored suit, his hair carefully styled. But the weariness on his once proud face was unmistakable. It was clear that life had been tough for him while supporting his entire family. Monica's expenses for our dances weighed on my parents' finances, and Mike's need for their support meant he had to break up with Monica since his parents had never approved of her. It was obvious that he truly loved her. So, in order to gain his family's support, He was willing to lower himself and pander to the small-time bosses he had once looked down upon. However, these people, whom he had previously dismissed, seemed to now look down on him. The bosses who had been all over him lit up as they saw me. They greeted me and approached swiftly. Mike, caught in the middle, could only stand awkwardly in place. But as our eyes met, something in his demeanor changed, seeming to lose the confidence he once had. When the company was just starting out, Mike never cared for the relationships nurtured at the wine table, as it was always me handling that part of the business. Now the company and partnerships were on the right track. Those people naturally acknowledged me, but not him. It was only the next moment when he seemed to make a certain decision that he strode towards me. I turned and whispered something to someone beside me. The bodyguard intercepted him immediately and politely escorted him out of the area. It wasn't until the banquet ended that night, as I was getting my car, that I encountered Mike waiting by the side. I looked at him, recalling our past together. After confirming that everything that happened was set in stone without any lingering attachment, I turned and got into my car without any hesitation. Mike hurried to stop me, but the car door closed on his hand, making a sharp noise as his fingers broke. Pale-faced with pain, he kept his eyes fixed on me. "Do we have to go this far, Joanna?" His voice was hoarse from pain. I lowered the window, dropped a check for 100,000, and smiled lightly at him for medical expenses. Then, without waiting for a response, I accelerated away. Since I saw Mike, I had been on guard. This group of people was having internal conflicts and were eyeing me for their next move. 2 days later, I saw Monica at the entrance of the company, whom I had not seen in a long time. If I remember correctly, she was supposed to be participating in a very important competition at the City Theater. The organizing committee had sent me an invitation to watch the competition, and Monica's name was on the participant list. However, she wasn't even wearing her dance outfit and had deliberately applied tired-looking makeup on her face, obviously coming for me. Upon seeing me, Monica immediately put on a pitiful expression and knelt down without saying a word. "Joanna, he is your brother-in-law now. How can you retaliate against him like this just because of your own relationship issues?" She cried inside as if she were performing in a play. I could see several professional cameras gradually moving closer among the onlookers. Monica had planned all of this. I forcefully pulled her hand and said coldly, "Monica, let's get things straight. It was you who stole your sister's husband first, then failed to keep him in check, allowing him to harass me. I defended myself against him and even paid his medical expenses. What more do you want?" My voice was loud enough for everyone around to hear. Monica turned pale and looked at me with resentment in her eyes. The whispers among the crowd grew louder, and I knew she must have a trick up her sleeve. Sure enough, after Monica cried a lot more, 2 familiar figures appeared before me. If I were still capable of feeling emotions, I might have laughed out loud at their display. Their relationship seemed so good. Despite the embarrassing incident last time, they were able to reconcile with Monica in the end. Unfortunately, I no longer had feelings, so I intervened before my parents could say anything, signaling to my secretary to turn on the recording equipment. Several cameras were pointed at them. In a calm and slow tone, I said, "From now on, every word you say will be recorded by me as evidence, and legal consequences will follow afterwards. If any of your statements constitute defamation, I will file a lawsuit and pursue it to the end." Upon hearing this, my father's face turned livid instantly. My mother tried to speak several times, but no words came out. Impatient, I turned and walked away. She finally rushed forward, clinging to my legs, crying and pleading. She asked, "What has happened to you? I am your mother. You never treated me like this before." She recounted the difficulties of raising me over the years, regretting her past actions and begging for forgiveness with tears in her eyes. She asked, "Joanna, does it mean you don't want me anymore?" I looked at her tearful eyes without a hint of emotion stirring within me. As I pondered how to respond without causing too much negative impact on the company's image, a strong pair of hands suddenly pulled her away from me. I looked up to see my aunt glaring at my parents and Monica, shouting, "How dare you try to force Joanna into anything? I have evidence of everything you did. Don't push me to expose it all." She continued, pointing at Monica, who was now trembling. "This is my brother's adopted daughter, the woman he abandoned his own daughter for. Monica, realizing the implications, tried to stop my aunt from speaking but was too late. My aunt turned back and loudly said to my mother. I sat on the ground. My brother never had any deceased war comrades. The girl he adopted is the daughter born out of an affair he had with his ex-lover. This revelation hit my mother like a thunderbolt, and it took her a moment to process it. Monica, unable to bear the pressure, turned and fled into the crowd. It was only then that my mother fully grasped the situation and rushed forward, grabbed Monica, examined her closely, and then without hesitation, slapped her hard across the face. Monica cried out in pain. It was a heavy blow. Since she came to our house at the age of 6, my parents had always cherished and protected her as if she were a pearl in their hands. She had never been treated like this before, and her usually innocent eyes were filled with tears. Her cries only seemed to provoke my mother even more. She continued to grab whatever she could find as a weapon and struck Monica repeatedly while Monica dodged and sought help from my father with pleading eyes. The surrounding crowd watched the drama unfold. No one had expected that the family that came to question me would end up quarreling among themselves. The journalist Monica had hired to take pictures had already been escorted out by my private security. As my aunt led me away, the scene escalated with my father protecting Monica and receiving a slap from my mother, who was then wrestled to the ground by my father in an attempt to stop her from attacking Monica. The security intervened again as the situation spiraled out of control, and they all ended up at the police station once more. This time, I had several paparazzi hired by Monica with prepared stories to tarnish my reputation. Accusations and rumors. Monica couldn't escape any of them. In the end, it was Mike holding hands with someone, rushing over to pick them up from his house. The commotion at the company's entrance today had already made it to the local trending topics. Perhaps Mike already knew the whole story on his way, but when he saw a disheveled Monica at the police station, he still wore a look of disbelief on his face. Monica, aren't you supposed to be at the competition? His gaze fell on Monica, realizing that even the clothes under her coat were not the performance outfit she hadn't had time to change into, which made him even more silent. Initially, Mike loved her for her artistic passion. He supported Monica's dancing as if making up for his past self, who was too afraid to pursue his dreams boldly. He even set aside his own dignity, got down to the nitty-gritty of life. But now this image is on the brink of collapse. For her to throw dirty water on her own foster sister just to clear her own name, and to easily give up on a competition that was more important to her than her own life in her eyes. People are like this sometimes, willing to disregard everything in the heat of the moment but then backpedaling in the next instance. Seeing the questioning look in Mike's eyes, Monica was clearly panicked. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she hastily began to explain. Mike, it's not what you think. It was Joanna. She tampered with my performance in the competition, and I had no choice but to do that. I just wanted her to let me go. This was Monica's original plan, to come to my company's entrance, unite with my birth parents to publicly disgrace me, paint me in the image of a jealous and malicious foster sister, and use this as an opportunity to accuse me of manipulation behind the scenes, ensuring that Monica couldn't win what she deserved even if she participated in the competition. Although she gave up the competition, she could use this scandal to boost her reputation and make sure she didn't lose anything. It was a risky move, but Monica confidently went through with it, relying on the support from my family. She thought she could pin me under public opinion, but little did she know that Monica found out that she was the product of my father's affair with his first love after marrying my mother. With one error, everything was lost. Even now, she still tried to throw the dirt on me. But before Mike walked in, my assistant had already laid out all the details of the matter for him to see, including Monica's transaction records with those paparazzi and their prepared fabrications to frame me. Many things they mentioned hadn't even happened yet, but they confidently claimed they did. Meanwhile, the organizing committee had already issued a statement. They had been organizing the competition for decades and had always had a good reputation. Monica not showing up for the competition and planning to disgrace them made them furious, especially since some of the higher-ups had connections with Mike's parents. Even if Mike wanted to intervene, they had already learned about Monica's existence. Mike's plan to boost Monica's fame and then bring her back home had fallen apart. I wasn't sure what kind of mindset he had coming to see Monica, But Monica's immediate reaction of lying to him sealed her fate in his eyes. The filter over Monica broke, and Mike's look towards her turned icy cold. He didn't even say a word, just turned around and left, leaving a bewildered Monica watching her last hope slip away bit by bit. Without Mike compensating her losses, Monica received a bonus of 15 days in detention. During this period, the dance competition committee initiated a lawsuit against Monica, and with Mike's parents' manipulation, the 15 days were forcibly extended to 2 months. My parents were also detained along with them. Having led a splendid life in their later years, they were in and out of prison twice in a year. Their affair during the marriage was exposed, and all the praise they had received for adopting Monica was now replaced with ridicule and mockery. Before I left, my father asked me one last time if I really wanted to end up like this. I turned around and with utmost sincerity I told him, "I'm not trying to start trouble. I've been swept along by life for so long, and I just want to break free. I want to be free from the undertow that's been dragging me down for years. I just want to live my own life, no longer being held hostage by familial ties, no longer having expectations of those who aren't worth it, no longer sacrificing myself in unjust ways to earn their approval. Do you understand? I no longer love you. This is the last time I will address you like this. Farewell, Mom and Dad." With those last words, my father couldn't discern my expression. I turned and left, catching a glimpse of my mother, tears streaming down her face. She wanted to say something as she saw me leaving, but in the end, nothing came out. Maybe now she truly regretted it, spending a lifetime pushing her daughter away only to make wedding garments for someone else. But what did that have to do with me? For more than 20 years, I shed enough tears for them. As I walked out of the police station, my aunt was waiting at the door for me. She was one of the few people in the world who truly understood my father. She was worried that my actions now would embarrass my father, and that he would do something detrimental to me in the future. And then there's Monica. She's not one to stay quiet, and her worry was evident in her eyes. I gently placed my hand on hers, telling her that we're not as weak as we used to be, that we can withstand whatever comes our way. Only then did my aunt relax a bit. After that, I kept an eye on their family's movements. I knew that Mike and Monica had broken up. Monica resisted violently and even caused trouble in front of Mike's parents, leading to harsh retribution. My parents devoted all their wealth to farming for so many years, but now, in just a blink of an eye, Monica was banned by the domestic dance community, disappearing completely. Monica, no longer having any support, chose to bow down to my dad and clung tightly to my parents. However, every time my mom saw Monica, she was filled with resentment. She wanted to divorce my dad, but he didn't agree, so she would vent her frustrations by yelling and abusing Monica. During this time, my business kept growing, showing signs of expanding into overseas markets. Mike's parents, whom I used to look down on, now sent me an invitation, and Mike tried to contact me several times, but I didn't respond once. Later, at a dinner party, I met Mike again. He seemed much more mature than before, but his eyes held a trace of melancholy when he looked at me. "Joanna, you've become so successful now, I almost don't recognize you," he greeted me, his eyes uncertain, lacking the confidence he used to have. Although he hadn't changed much, he had lost his former arrogance, seemingly afraid of being rejected by me. Mike quickly started speaking, apologizing to me face to face. He said he owed me an apology for a long time. He finally realized that he had never really liked Monica. He had just projected his inner desires onto her, thinking he could find his true self through her. Now I understand how naive I was before. After losing you, I realized what I had truly lost. I listened to his words impatiently, and finally, I couldn't hold back anymore and stood up to leave. "Monica!" Mike called my name from behind, asking me if we could start over. "No, I have no interest in rotten cucumbers." I smiled bluntly, rejecting him. "Mike, no matter how nice you say it, you can't change the fact that you couldn't resist the novelty and cheated during our relationship. Now you have the audacity to appear in front of me? You really have no shame." After removing the filter on Mike, I realized that the person I used to idolize in my heart was just like that. Moreover, I had surpassed his previous position long ago, and from now on I would be the one to light up my own life. Perhaps feeling too much pressure from me, not long after, I heard that Mike and Monica had hooked up again. Indeed, there's only zero or countless times of cheating. But this time, Monica could no longer enjoy the pampering treatment she used to receive from Mike. He brutally exposed his dark side to her. Mike often physically abused Monica, and worse, he would constantly belittle her in words, calling her the most despicable woman in the world. He looked down on Monica but wanted to gain respect and satisfaction from her. During their entanglement, unexpectedly, my parents reconciled. It was said that my mom was pregnant again, a late child in their lives, which completely dispelled her thoughts of divorce and even led her to accept Monica. On a rainy night with thunder and lightning, an urgent, unfamiliar call came to my phone. Upon answering, my dad's panicked voice came through. "Joanna, your mom fell at home and there's a lot of blood. We don't know what to do. Please come see her. She raised you for over 20 years. After hanging up, I calmly dialed the emergency hotline for them, arranging for an ambulance. My aunt, who was present, looked at me anxiously, standing up several times to offer to accompany me outside. "No need, I'm not a doctor. I won't be of help there," I calmly replied. My aunt looked at me for a while before whispering, "Right, the weather outside is bad. It's dangerous to go out." I listened to my aunt's words, feeling a hint of doubt creeping in. When I finished dealing with the business late at night and was preparing to rest, my phone vibrated. Answering the call, there was a burst of chaotic electrical noise. Without hesitation, I hung up the call, only to realize upon exiting the call screen that the number had sent me several text messages. The latest one was just a few lines. "I'm sorry, I'm not worthy to be your mother. Take care of yourself and your aunt, Joanna. I'm going to atone." Scrolling up, I saw 3 words. "Don't come here." My heart jumped at that moment, a long-lost feeling of suspicion rising in my chest. I stood up from my seat and headed towards the door. But as my gaze caught the pouring rain and thunder outside, my steps gradually slowed. In the end, I took out my phone and dialed the police hotline in my parents' area. The next morning, the first contact I received, I was informed by the police that last night a fire broke out in the old neighborhood where my parents lived. Monica, my parents, and Mike all perished in the flames. After their investigation, they suspected that someone had deliberately set the fire because the forensic examiners found excessive sleeping pills in all 4 bodies. I couldn't describe the emotions within me. From the moment I saw the text message last night, the fleeting emotional roller coaster to now, I remained utterly calm. But it was my aunt who now had teary eyes as she looked at me. She embraced me and gently reassured me, telling me that she would be there for me as my family. I lowered my eyes and remained silent. It was only after a long time when the police investigation results came out that I learned what had really happened that night. It turns out my mom wasn't actually pregnant and she wanted to divorce my dad. In embarrassment, my dad tied her up at home. During that time, Monica didn't fare well. Under the manipulation of Mike's parents, she was socially dead at university, banned in the dance community, and stayed at home all day, venting her frustrations on my mom. Of course, she hated me most. She felt that everything happening now was my fault, especially since Mike always seemed distant with her and often used me to belittle her. Monica made up her mind and devised a malicious plan with my dad. They wanted to lure me over with my mom's help, then stage an accident to kill me and split my current assets. When my mom found out about it, she surprisingly offered to help my dad. In my dad's eyes, my mom was also full of hatred towards me, so he didn't guard against her much. That rainy night, my mom spiked my dad and Monica's food with sleeping pills and then called Mike over. Despite Mike looking down on Monica, he still respected my mom. When he arrived, he was also drugged. My mom lined them up neatly, then lit the gas stove in the house. Additionally, we obtained Joanna's will from your relatives. The police handed me a letter, and as I opened it, the paper was stained with tear marks. "Joanna, if we're destined to meet in the next life, I'll make sure to be a good mother. For now, I'll seek redemption." I thought if there really is a next life, it's probably best not to be entangled again. Later, my aunt and I lived well. During the first snowfall, I was making dumplings at my aunt's house, which was decorated in warm colors. As the first snowflake fell, she called me over for dinner. When I turned around, I saw my aunt's kind side profile, and familiar warmth gradually thawed from my icy heart. So I smiled at my aunt with genuine emotion for the first time in ages. My aunt, holding a plate, was stunned in place. Slowly, her eyes welled up with tears. We locked eyes and smiled. Finally, after enduring countless trials and tribulations, the road ahead was only filled with blooming spring flowers.